Also, Kate wasn't on the wall, which is kind of weird because as we know, she was also touched by Jacob when she was a kid too. Now the obvious answer would be that we just weren't shown her name yet, but even if she was on the wall, her name wouldn't appear next to one of the numbers, one of the 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42 numbers. I have a feeling she won't appear on the wall though, and that means she isn't a candidate. Remember in the past seasons, Kate isn't listed on any of the lists from Jacob, and Mikhail says it's because she's flawed. Now, even though some of the characters that are on the wall also aren't on the lists, maybe they've changed over time. We also see the name Mars, number 301, on the wall, meaning Edward Mars was a candidate. Maybe Jacob was manipulating Kate this entire time to get Edward Mars to the island instead. Another idea is that Kate's going to be the one to take over Richard's advising role. As we know, Richard's name wasn't on the wall as well. It's just hard to think that after Kate's being such an important character all this time, she's not somehow involved in the end game. Another reason that Kate and Son could both be left off the wall is that they both broke the rules after Jacob told them not to after he touched them. Remember, he says to Kate, "Don't steal again," and as we know, she does a lot when she's older. And then he touches Son and says, "Your love is special," and as we know, she cheats on Jin. For some reason, Miles Strom and Littleton, assuming it's Claire, are the only characters whose names are crossed out, yet they're still alive. But why is this? Well, it could be that they serve some special role. As we saw in the Last Supper photo, Miles and Claire were the only two people to switch sides of the table. Now let's talk about the numbers, but before I get into some theories on what the numbers actually mean, one of the big questions is why are certain numbers attached to certain people, and what's the significance of those numbers corresponding to those particular people? We know it's not based alphabetically, and we know it's not based on arrival to the island, so one of the ideas is that it's based on preference, and that the closer you are to number 1, the more valued you are as a candidate, which is why Locke appears very high on the list. Since Locke's dead now, Hurley as number 8 would be the next highest on the list. And it's kind of funny because remember a couple episodes ago, Miles says, "Looks like Hurley's a leader now." And he was just joking, but there could be some truth to it. Only problem is Hurley's wearing a red shirt, meaning maybe he's the next one to die, unfortunately. And if the preference theory turns out to be true, that means the top 3 numbers would be very important. Maybe number 3 is either Dogan or Desmond or Whitmore. Maybe number 2 is Richard. And one idea is that maybe number 1 is actually the Man in Black himself, like Jacob actually brought him to the island to be a candidate for him, but he just refused. Okay, now the big question is, what's the purpose of the numbers 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, and why are they assigned to the certain losties that we already know? Now I've talked about this in different past recaps, but I'll elaborate more on it now. One of the most popular ideas for a while now has been that the numbers are the Valenzetti equation. The equation was discovered by Enzo Valenzetti, and the theory is that the numbers are supposed to accurately predict the date in which mankind extinguishes itself. Here's what Alvar Hanso says in the Sri Lanka video.
After the Cuban Missile Crisis, both nations decided to find a solution. The result was the Valenzetti equation, commissioned under the highest secrecy through the UN Security Council. The equation is the brainchild of the Italian mathematician Enzo Valenzetti. It predicts the exact number of years and months before humanity extinguishes itself, whether through nuclear fire, chemical and biological warfare, conventional warfare, pandemic, overpopulation. His results are chilling, and attention must be paid. Valenzetti gave numerical values to the core environmental and human factors in his equation. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42. Only by manipulating the environment, by finding scientific solutions to all of our problems, will we be able to change those core factors and give humanity a chance to survive. Although the equation has been buried by those who commissioned it, panic. It has always been my belief that we ignore warnings at our own peril, and thus the Dharma Initiative was born.
Faraday talks a lot in the past 2 seasons about variables and equations and says that people can be variables too. Maybe the losties with the numbers attached to them will serve a bigger purpose than just being a candidate for Jacob. Maybe it's the 6 characters attached to the number that will be responsible and that they somehow have to change their numbers to avoid a catastrophe. Maybe Jacob's getting a group together that will exist and save humanity from the end of the world. He's been on the island for so long that he's tried so many different combinations of people. Another idea for the numbers in connection to the names on the wall is that it's more like a countdown rather than being read 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. Maybe it should be read 42, 23, 16, 15, 8, and 4, and that the closer you are to 1, the better chance you have at being Jacob's successor, which is similar to the preference theory. Now, there's hundreds of ideas out there on what the numbers can mean. I've given you just a couple, but I really want to hear what you guys think, so down in the comments down there, let me know. Now, why does Locke's name not have a dash in between the number 4 and the name Locke? Well, one idea is that the man in black was actually the one who wrote down Locke's name, and that's why the reason he's crossing it out. Maybe he's just doing that as a ploy to Sawyer. Maybe there's actually another 4- name somewhere. It could be that another 4- name is crossed out already, and that Locke is just being a substitute for that name. Maybe the real 4- name is actually Kate Austen. Who knows? And the last thing I want to touch on is whether or not the room with the wall of names and numbers is actually Jacob's, like Flock says it is, or if it's the Man in Black's room. The only reason I think it could be the Man in Black's room is that it's just a big list of people that he's trying to get to claim for himself. That's probably why he crossed off Locke's name, because he's dead now. We also see Littleton, assuming that's Claire's name, crossed out, because as we know, she was claimed by the darkness, so that means, I think later on, Saeed's name will be crossed off too. Another indication that it could be the Man in Black's room rather than Jacob's room is that the names on the wall aren't orderly, as we know Jacob to be, and it's more like a prisoner in a cell would write them. Okay, time for this week's game of Gus's Photo Hunt. First off, congrats to Electric947 for winning last week's contest. You were the first person to somehow figure out that this little part of this picture belonged to this picture, and you won a nice virtual trophy on our website, so congrats. Here's the one for this week. I'll make it a little harder this time. Try to guess what it is. Now for the unanswered questions of this episode. I just have 2 big ones for you today. First, who is the mystery boy? And second, what are the numbers all about? I've given you some different ideas out there. If you agree with one of them, or if you have a completely different idea, share it with me down below in the comment section. I really want to see what you guys think. Okay, that's it for me, guys. Next week's episode is called Lighthouse, which I kind of need here since it's dark. Only had one day to film and got late. Sorry about that. Anyways, I'll see you guys next week, and God bless.